Hello guys and welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm back. I've been on holiday and I'm well sunned, well tanned, but I also have a perforated eardrum, so if my audio sounds a bit off, it's because I can't hear very well. Yes, today we put together a show coming to you from the Old Market Hall in town, right in town square. That's the ambience you can hear behind me. And before we put together a show about the desirability of Shrewsbury, what makes this town so desirable, and we're going to talk about the variety of sort of architecture and history and culture and what makes this town so amazing. And we carefully put together a team today. We have our good friend Mr. Phil Gillam. How are you, sir? You good?
Very well, thank you, Andy.
And then we have Andy Dawson.
Hello.
From Nock, Deighton. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Nice to have you on it. And, someone that deals on property is the perfect person to bring on. And we also have the great, the powerful Mr. Stan Sedman. How are you, Stan?
I'm fine, thank you.
It's great to get you back on. It's been a while since we spoke on the show.
It is, yeah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. Right, so I think it was me and you, Phil, and Andy, that we sort of had this conversation about, let's put a show together where we can just sort of boast about Shrewsbury a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is your speciality. Do you want to tell people about the book that you released that we spoke about on the show?
That seems like blatant advertising on.
You're allowed to. You're absolutely allowed to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Stan knows me very well, and I'm Shrewsbury born and bred. I love the town with a passion. And my latest creation is a book called The Shrewsbury Review, which is full of beautiful photographs of the town, the architecture. It talks about the history. It also has lots of interesting personality profiles of some of the most colourful characters that make our town what it is today.
And we need to, like we spoke about on our interview together, we need to do this. We need to advertise how great this town is. And I think what you've done with this with the book is you've gone down a rabbit hole. And now, did you feel like you need to speak more and learn more about Shrewsbury and sort of advertise the great parts of the town?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and Stan again will bear this out. I think that we sometimes perhaps take it for granted if we live here, and we work here, and we sort of just soak it all up. But if you can step back, if you have those days when you can just have a wander around at your leisure. And as people keep saying, look up at the buildings. Don't just look at the shop.
That's what Stan taught me.
Yeah,
is that right?
Look up. But yeah, I mean, there are days when it just takes your breath away, and there are certain places. I love St. Chad's. I love all that area around there, the quarry, and walking across Kingsland Bridge on a sunny day. You think, oh my word. But yeah, I mean, and again, I keep going back to Stan because he does these fantastic walks and talks around the town and the suburbs in particular, which are so easy to take for granted, but there's so much richness and variety. And I am a romantic, and I grew up in Castlefields, I grew up in North Street, and it, at first glance, it just looks like any other street, I suppose. And people could make that argument. It's just another Victorian street. But
as an outsider, though, I kind of started off in Telford, and then I've had a weird introduction to sort of estates and housing and sort of places. So I went from Telford to Wrexham, which is a very old Welsh towny sort of. So I've had loads of sort of things to get used to, but they all tend to start looking very samey in a way that it's the post-war. Rows of buildings, really long streets, and that's what you get used to with what I got used to anyway with estates and where you grow up. But Shrewsbury's different. There's character. In Castlefield, Stan. When you do your tours, you show people the difference in architecture, how buildings change over years, and that's what I love.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. I mean, we've got these beautiful suburbs around Shrewsbury, which you don't think. I think of Shrewsbury as a flower. I was told this by Barry Trinder many years ago. And the town centre is the centre of the flower. And then these suburbs are the petals. And if you go out into them, there's a variety of communities there. And are real good communities. I mean, one of the strongest communities is Bellevue, without any shadow of doubt, with Sasslefield as a close second. And you go in there and you get an atmosphere of warmness that and people talk to you as you go around. you can feel the spirit that's there, and we're very fortunate that we've got that. And yes, we've got rows of streets and that sort of thing, but if you look at them differently, and there are people in those houses and the communities there, and that's what makes Shrewsbury. When I come to Shrewsbury, wherever I come in, I feel good, and that's what I say. I walk down Pride Hill and I think, this is great. I don't like that shop front, but the building above it is beautiful, you know. And then you go off and you walk around the alley, Grove Lane and Back Passage, and you see people taking over and building little houses there. They're opening the places up, and it's great. And there's a spirit in Shrewsbury, and whenever you come in, you always meet somebody, but it's always full of visitors walking around. And they just want to talk and be guided.
And new people that's just moved into the town as well. I mean, over the years of interviewing people in the Shrewsbury Biscuit, I've met so many people that have just moved here and like, well, I can't believe how lucky I am to live here. Or it's people that's moved away and then come back because they just couldn't help but think, I need to get back to Shrewsbury. It's kind of really common. And Andy, as somebody that works with property, what do you think is most important when it comes to a town like Shrewsbury? Is it history and tradition, or is it just something that catches the eye and maybe something modern? And can you mix it a little bit?
I think it's a variety of things, really. We're accessible to places like Birmingham, Manchester, but we are so rich in variety of buildings, the charm, the character. I'm Shrewsbury born and bred and very passionate about the town. You know, I feel very lucky that, you know, I get to live and work in such a beautiful town.
You're very rare, because there's a lot of people who are like, Shrewsbury's an amazing town, but you know what, Birmingham or Manchester or London looks so much more desirable, and then they move away and then they come back, you know?
Exactly. You know, we've got a railway station with mainline connections, but it's just the feel of the place, like Stan said. You know, you do have some very welcoming communities, and we've got a whole database of buyers just wanting to come to Shrewsbury, but the demand at the moment
seems that they can't build houses quick enough in Shrewsbury at the moment.
Well, it's absolutely. But the older houses, so we just sold one on Dorset Street overlooking the river at the back, and it was like so much interest with people coming, you know, from London, down south, southeast,
really
coming up for viewings like at the drop of a hat.
Why though? What are the reasons that you've kind of gathered for why people want to move from?
Well, we are very desirable in terms of like top 10 places to live. You know, you've got the Quarry, which is just beautiful, and obviously the events there throughout the year.
The market hall's constantly like Britain's top market, you know.
Yeah, the indoor market's just superb, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just, you know, the independent traders there. And I think it's like with estate agents, we don't have any corporate ones here. We're all independents, which I think is quite unique for a town of our size.
Independence is kind of very important into business here, and you know, even now, even like nearly 4 years after I started the Biscuit, I'm still hearing about new independent businesses opening up, and it's really refreshing to hear. It's really nice to hear that, you know, the Wild Cop, yes, a business may start, and it was very sad during the pandemic. We lost a couple of beautiful businesses, independent businesses that aren't with us anymore. But in the place comes another independent business, not a chain or a big, you know. I guess chains could very easily move into the town here, but it just wouldn't fit, would it?
No.
Wouldn't fit.
Certainly wouldn't fit on Wild Cop. I mean,
No.
Wild Cop means that longest stretch of independent businesses in the country, and the variety there is unbelievable. I mean, I'm just writing articles for the Shrewsbury magazine about the Wild Cop with the streetscape, and every time I go and look at one of the blocks of houses, it's absolutely amazing the history that's in there. And the hidden wonders behind the frontage is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it does make you feel proud. When you were putting your book together, Phil, how did you choose what to write about? Because you could have write about it could have been a 12-chapter book just on architecture alone.
Well, the idea is that it's not just a one-off, it's going to be an annual. So we'll be able to visit areas of the town and buildings and people that we haven't yet spoken to or been to. I was just thinking about Wildcop actually, since Dan mentioned it. It's got to be one of the most beautiful streets in the country. It's absolutely stunning, isn't it? And if you stand at the top and look down, you think, oh my word, it's fantastic.
Unless you're carrying about 25 kilos worth of microphones and a hot summer day and you got like 5 minutes to be where you need to be. Yeah, it's wonderful.
There is that, yeah. I often hear, elderly folk that struggle to the top and say, I'm sure this hill gets steeper every time I walk up it.
It does.
But,
I think it's fact.
It's a gorgeous street. And I also think maybe we don't make enough of it, because I think tourists coming to the town, perhaps by rail or by bus or coach, they might not even know it's there. They just do Pride Hill and maybe the quarry.
Yeah.
And, there's so much more, isn't there?
Well, when you look at the street, I mean, you've got buildings there. They're all listed of some sort, from 1 to 2, and you get the 1410 up to the present day, and it's unbelievable, And the variety of businesses are there, and the shops are absolutely superb. I mean, we've got one lady there. She clothes royalty, and her business headquarters at the top of the Cop, and in Shrewsbury, and she's got a bouquet in Regent Street or somewhere like that in London, but her business is based here. Absolutely incredible quality that you've got. And then you've got the vintage shop, which is curiosity gone mad. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic to go in there. If you want a weird present for somebody special, go in there.
Curiosity gone mad.
Yeah.
But you also have huge brands that start in Shrewsbury as well, with Planet Donut, for example.
Oh, they're doing fantastically well, aren't they?
Amazing.
Stores all over. Yeah.
So it's not, like you said, it's not just small independents. Maybe it's a small independent that goes boom, but they still recognise their Shrewsbury background.
And they still keep the character.
Yes,
that's the beauty about it. They don't go flash big. They keep that character of Shrewsbury, which they started with.
Yeah.
There are a few discussions about the riverfront at the moment. Obviously, we've all seen the artistic rendition of what it's going to look like, the riverfront now when they start building all that. What were your thoughts when you first saw that stand, the artistic rendering?
I was worried.
Very worried?
Yeah. I just hope they do get it right. It looks good. I'm worried about the traffic angle, and part of me says you can adapt buildings, you don't have to knock everything down. That's my belief in things. But we've got a water fruit across the other side of the Welsh Bridge where Sabina is, and I'm just hoping they don't overdo it and over-modernise it and spoil that approach.
Yeah.
Because it is a beautiful part of the town, the river, and I don't know.
You can make modern buildings in a goal to sort of keep up appearances of what's going around you, the environment around you. You can make modern buildings look old, if you know what I mean, in a modern way.
I don't want them to look old. I want them to look that they fit into the places. I think the greenery will help. They're having roof gardens, things like that. But I just hope they don't overcrowd that particular area.
Yeah.
But
what'll be, I guess.
Yeah, I shan't be here when they've done it. Because I'm getting older. Not because I'm leaving Shrewsbury, because I wouldn't for dream of it. But no, it's just, you look at something like that and you think, well, is it going to work? And I hope it does.
Yes,
I think Stan's absolutely right. It's something that they've got to marry together well, the modern and the character and the history. So in Shrewsbury, one of the few places you could have cocktails in a Tudor building. You've got modern art at the ancient bare steps. So we can have these contradictions, but we need to get it right. Absolutely, I agree, and especially in a town where ingenuity means so much. With the birthplace of Charles Darwin, and there are great spots around town that do show that, and I know you do tours around town that illustrate this, Stan, that are nods towards Charles Darwin or towards that sort of that idea that
this is a town for thinkers and for there's just so many wonderful variation of people, whether they're artistic, whether they're brilliant thinkers, musicians, authors, writers, and we need to sort of inspire that for the next generation, don't we? And we do. I think we do an all right job.
Yeah, when it comes to the riverside, that scheme that you were referring to, I wouldn't say I was worried about it, but I would say I have my reservations. It's enormously ambitious, and it's part of the big town plan, of course, which has dozens and dozens of schemes for Shrewsbury north, south, east, and west, which would affect every part of the town. The approach to the railway station and Ditherington, all these different aspects to it. And I think it is enormously ambitious, and as stands as I don't think any of us will be here to see it, to be quite honest, because I think it's going to take years and years and years for that to come to fruition.
Yes, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't think they'll butcher the town. I think they'll add something great to it. I mean, they've been doing this. They've been doing it like these refurbishments of towns. They've in a few towns they've built like these new business hubs. They've done it in a few towns and they look great. They've done a good job, I think, with most places. What I was going to say, and I was mentioning it to you guys before we hit record, was I've got family and friends all around the world, right? And some that I've never been to the UK, never been to Shrewsbury, but I always say to them, if you ever find yourself in Shropshire or Shrewsbury, come and give me a knock and we'll go for a few drinks, what have you. And I always think, where's the one place I would take to someone in Shrewsbury to show off Shrewsbury the most? Where's the first place you would go to? And I always think places like this, where we are right now, the Old Market Hall, the history behind it. This is one of the places I would bring them, just to show them that even though this building is like over half a century old, it's still a bustling business, a beautiful building, right in the centre of all the amazing architecture to our right as we look now, not so much to our left. So yeah, this is one of the places I'd bring them, or Fish Street. So Stan, where would you take some?
I would definitely start here.
Yeah.
And I always talk about this building because here we have a Tudor building which has been adapted to a first-class facility for people.
Yeah.
We're sitting here in the cafe. There's a cinema along there. Below us there's an area where you can have displays and what have you. Perfect. It's the centre of the town. But from here I would then head across and I stand in front of Clive with their back to Clive, and I point the buildings and I go around Islands Mansion 1575, Lloyd's Bank 1960s model of a concrete Tudor building, the cafe there with the 13th century wall inside it, 1702 the buildings opposite, 1592, 1598, 1891, 1730, 1575, 1960s monstrosity, and we haven't even moved. And then from there, cut across, stand in front of the Costa Coffee that is now, and you look there, and in 1990 that had to be repaired, restored, and they were allowed to put in, they had to put in completely new beams. So they were adventurous, and they've got Margaret Thatcher on one of them, and Michael Heseltine.
Motorbikes,
things like that. And then you go up Grope Lane, which is what it is, past some super little shops. You've got the Harry Potter shop, which you see lots of kids in there. And then, as you say, you're in Fish Street and the Bear Steps, and then St Auckland Square, which was the original place where Shrewsbury started, where Civitatis Scrobensis was in 901. And it's places like that, and then you just move on, and wherever you go, there's something of magic.
Yes. Yeah. Stan, I love you. That's why we invited you today. Andy, is there a favourite spot there where like you got people moving in from London and from Birmingham? Where would you take someone to?
On a nice sunny day, the square's perfect for a coffee and people watching, just soaking up the atmosphere of the town. But then in the afternoon, you'd have a stroll through the quarry, the Dingle. Just absolutely beautiful, isn't it? Something we're all very proud of.
Yeah.
But if I was taking them for an afternoon drink, it'd be the Boathouse, where you can just sit and enjoy that view. I just think it's very special.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. Phil, have you done this before? Have you brought people in from town just to show off?
Yeah, and it's it's a bit of a cliche now that the other guys have had their say, really. But to be quite honest, you'd be hard pressed to beat starting at the Square and doing Fish Street and those places. They're just so lovely, and Grove Lane and all these. I was struck at Stan a moment ago. I love that, the way he's able to sort of point at buildings and say all the different dates.
Yeah.
I don't think any one of us could do that. And I love that phrase, 60s monstrosity, because I do know some people who actually love 60s architecture, and I was just thinking, Andy probably, there's no way, if he's trying to sell a building to someone, he's not going to say, oh, and here's a 60s monstrosity.
No.
How do you explain something like that, though? If you're trying to sell it.
The 60s, well, it was an interesting decade, so I'm told. So, yeah.
If you love your block concrete, you're going to love this.
Houghton Manor flats with large picture windows, but it's a great spot. Just not very appealing on the eye.
So I hadn't realised, Andy, that you're a local boy. So which part of town are you from?
I grew up in Baston Hill.
Oh, yeah.
My wife and I, we lived together down by the Abbey on Portobello. And then when we had children, we wanted to move back to Baston Hill because it's one of those communities that, if you grow up and you just, you want to move back there.
Yeah.
I'm from Baston Hill.
Cool.
Yeah. It's a lovely place. Over the last few weeks, I've just come back from Greece, my holiday, which I mentioned. But before I went away, there was so many things. There was the crazy races.
Yeah,
was going on.
Fantastic.
It was an amazing weekend. Before that, we had the party in the Quarry Park.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks, we've got a food festival. Tomorrow, I'm going to be at the Bellevue Arts Festival. It's just never ending. There's always something going on in Shrewsbury, and I love that, especially from the Shrewsbury Biscuit point of view. But it's just great that there's always something to look at, right?
Well, I think tomorrow there's the farmers market in the square, is there?
And that as well.
Yes, the farmers market on Fridays, the first Friday of every month it is normally, and then you've got the Made in Shropshire market as well, which is very good. Good quality people, local people selling their wares,
Yeah.
So, as you say, there's something on all the time. It's just a magical place to be, and people are amazed. We talk about people coming from away. On Saturday, I'm doing a tour, and I've got Paul from Sydney, who's come back to visit his family, and he's doing the tours and taking pictures to take back to his friends in Sydney. And then the following week, I'm doing a Shuts and Passages, and I've got somebody from Adelaide, And
wow.
They all come back to Shrewsbury. It's quite amazing.
I'm not surprised, Stan. Your tours are pretty fantastic.
But the one thing that has helped Shrewsbury as well is the Facebook. We all know For the Love of Shrewsbury.
Absolutely, definitely worth a mention.
Absolutely unbelievable. Started off in 2016. It was 2,000. I think we're 30,000 now.
Yeah.
And the people that correspond from all over the world, and they use that, and it goes out to everybody. Fantastic photography, local people, and people telling their stories, people asking questions. Advertising things on, and
rallying around to support people as well. And my mother-in-law put a pitch. She made a cake that was in the Lakeland window, and it was for a competition that was run throughout Lakeland as a business. And it was a Jubilee cake. It was a Union Jack and Jubilee cake, and she put a picture of it up on For the Love of Shrewsbury. And the love and adoration she got for that made her so happy. Brilliant. So for things like that, it's perfect. Yeah. Perfect for what it does. So Lorraine Fletcher, we need to get Lorraine on the show again, don't we?
Yes,
absolutely, because it's been a while. In fact, when we spoke to you last time, that was way before the pandemic, like way before. And we got to talk about that, Stan. How was that for you? Because you really do like walking around town and getting about and stuff. Yeah. But you were shielding. How was that for you, not being able to get out and do those tours? It must have been horrible for you.
I miss them.
Yeah.
Not just the actual walking around. I miss the people.
Yeah.
As I said, we've got some fantastic people. Wherever I go in Shrewsbury, there's somebody I know, and a lot of them come on the tours, and I've made a lot of friends from it, and they're very special people. And when I stop doing that, I'll miss it. They're wonderful, and people want to know about the other parts of the town. That's what I like it. Somebody lives in Coleham, they want to know about Castlefields, because they never go there, they just drive past. and it's introducing to the other areas, and they're exploring the town, and more people are now going out and exploring themselves, and that's the beauty. They're doing their own things. And then we've got the lady, Sarah Hopper at Ferndale. She does these fantastic treasure hunts.
Did you do that, Phil? Did you do the treasure hunt?
I haven't done the treasure hunt, but
It's very good. It's hard.
Sarah Hopper and the often mentioned Lorraine Fletcher, they're both featured in my book, by the way.
That's why I drew it to you.
Yeah, and they're both absolutely brilliant champions of this town. Yeah, and what's nice is that people who stay at Ferndale B&B, what a fantastic place to stay, because then they know from Sarah firsthand about the town and the history, and that what a beautiful walk just down there over the bridge, and that's a fantastic introduction to the town for strangers.
Absolutely. You can see the Dana, and like you say, stroll down Castle walk up Victoria Street, and then you're in the town. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of having a chat with Sarah for my Facebook page, the Shrewsbury Property page, but unlike today, I tried to do it myself and the audio didn't come out very well, so Sarah was very forgiving, but maybe another time.
Yeah. Well, if you need help with that, give me a shout. I'll help you out. It's kind of like the only thing I'm good at is the one thing I can't get paid for. If anybody wants to sort of send some large amounts of money towards the biscuit, you're more than welcome to. Saying, do a great job here. I also remember I was chatting to my good friend Tom Bruno, who lives in Vermont. We were on Facebook chatting. As I'm walking to my car, I was like, "Oh yeah, mate," and I spun the camera around so he was facing up my windscreen. Didn't touch my phone. Just left it, turned it on, and I just drove home with him watching through the windscreen. And I drove down Abbey Foregate. He said, "Whoa, is that a castle?" I was like, "No, that's an abbey." And we were driving around. He's like, "Oh my God, look at these old buildings. Is that an old post box? Oh my God, what's that?" I was like, he was just amazed by it's an American enjoying Shrewsbury through the windscreen of my car, and I feel like we should do more of that. I feel like there's room there for people just driving around, recording their surroundings. And you standing talking about go around and exploring other areas of town. I've been quite lucky because I've kind of lived in my short space of time living here in Shrewsbury. I lived in 3 areas. I lived in Bellevue and I stayed in Copthorne for a year. Copthorne absolutely blew my mind because it just goes back and back and back and back. There was so much to Copthorne, and we went just for an explore one day during lockdown when we could all walk about, and we ended up down by the river, walked along, and then we ended up by the Mount House, and we just got lost in this amazing labyrinth of houses with so much character, and I love that. And now I'm in Sutton Grange. They're all new houses. But we've got the Rebrook just on the corner there, which is great.
Everywhere you've got. I mean, you talked about that river walk. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. You can walk. You walk up the mountain. You just go down some steps. You're in fields, and there's cows grazing and in the water. Yeah, absolutely. But Shrewsbury's unique. Every little area that we've talked about, they've all got a community woodland or that sort of thing, and a play area and something where people can gather, and that's a selling point in my opinion. We've got the Rad Valley, we've got Mousecroft, we've got the Monkmore Fields, we've got all these places where it's just off the beaten track, but just round the corner, within 100 yards of your house. You can go and kick a football or go and look at birds or pick flowers. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Where I am in Baston Hill, we're lucky enough to have the sensory gardens.
Yes.
And we're at the foot of Lith Hill. You walk up and you've got all those views. It's absolutely amazing. I regularly take my dogs up there and sometimes just stop and think, wow. Why would I ever want to leave a place like this?
Yeah, love Lith Hill. Yeah, it's so often just go up there and you've got spectacular views. Yeah. It's just so.
It is, isn't it?
Fresh air and blue skies. Yeah.
But I'm going to pay a compliment. I'm not being a politician. I'm paying a compliment to the town council. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
They're fantastic, and they look after these areas, and they provide them for the people. And I'm so proud of them.
Especially the quarry. The quarry's doing, especially with them now holding, these amazing festivals like the Crazy Races. That Crazy Festivals was a free event people can come to, and there were thousands upon thousands of people lining the track there for the Crazy Races. Great initiatives, but and when people go, the quarry ends up looking perfect again.
Yeah.
really hard work.
And a small team as well.
Yeah,
They really are, but they're good.
I remember it was during the flower show. Actually, it was the flower show when you were the mayor, and I spoke to some of the gardeners that were there, and they were fantastic. The gardeners look after the dingle, and they're brilliant at what they do. And really are great. So we should do more with them actually.
I think, if you go and get hold of Mark and Kev, and also last night I was at the nursery up at Weeping Cross, where getting all the flowers ready, and there's people like that. If you've got those gardens together and talk to them, and the lads that produce that beautiful Jubilee border on outside the castle, talk to them about how they do it and where they do it.
We should take a camera and have a day in the life of a Shrewsbury town gardener.
I mean, there's heliotropes that they use the cuttings from last year, and they're doing this all throughout the winter, so it's not just a summer business. And we've got a tree nursery up at the Weeping Cross, producing trees to put around to replace trees that have got to be demolished for some reason. We're very, very lucky.
I do feel I should declare an interest at this point because I am a Shrewsbury Town Councillor. But I've got to say, you're quite right to pay tribute to those lads, and lasses. The teams that look after especially places like the Reedbrook Valley and Radbrook and. They would just be jungle, wouldn't they?
Otherwise? Yes, they would be.
And that they're very carefully managed, so it feels like open countryside, but obviously a lot of work goes into it.
Yeah. And people come from all over the country to fish in Shrewsbury. They've got the Shrewsbury fisheries, and they've got a young academy as well going, and introducing people to fishing, which is a very good pastime. And when I was in the army, we used to use it for PTSD when people had been in Northern Ireland a bit strung up. We'd get them fishing around the streets in Germany. And people come here, and I was around Mousecroft this morning, and there was 4 gentlemen just sitting there fishing, enjoying the sun, absolutely brilliant. 3 people walking their dogs past me. Good morning,
Yeah.
Well,
I can imagine. I don't do. My son turned to me and said, "Can we go fishing one day, Dad?" And I was like, "Oh my God," because I've been fishing like twice in my life, but I could see how it would benefit someone with PTSD or with some sort of mental health problems.
Yeah.
Just sitting, relax, and listen to the water in the
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, I've got a fish. We're sitting here talking about all the great things Shrewsbury is and what Shrewsbury does. But is there something we don't try hard enough with? Is there something that you would like to see more of in Shrewsbury? And we've got to go to a councillor to ask this, because I feel like you must hear these suggestions an awful lot from people. Is there something that commonly gets brought up about what Shrewsbury needs more of?
Oh, over to Stan.
I don't think we need any more coffee shops and charity shops, but the one thing that gets my goat is some of the shop fronts. We've got no control over them. When I did Europe in Bloom 2007, the one thing that the judges said, "Oh, look, I don't like your shop fronts, the modern shop fronts on a medieval building. You've got that beautiful building on Pride Hill with all the metal ornamentation on the front, built in 1743. It's got a phone shop with a garish green thing. Things like that jar me, but I understand they've got to sell their business as well.
Yeah.
So it's getting that happy medium.
That's a really interesting one, actually. Yeah. I don't know if any of you guys remember Woolworths, when Woolworths was here.
Yeah.
And in every other town in the United Kingdom, it was a bright red frontage. But Shrewsbury Town Council, or at that time it would have been Shrewsbury and Atcham Borough Council, I guess, insisted that this terrible red frontage was out of keeping with the town. And sure enough, Woolworths toned it down. So it was a much more subtle sign. And that was the only place, as far as I know, in the UK that had this very subtle Woolworths frontage. But also, there's a little shop. I think it began life perhaps as a Lion's Tea Room, but the little black and white shop on the corner, just by the railway station there before you go up to the Danner. And it's currently Tap and Can, I think it is. Yeah. For years, it was Computerama.
Yes, I remember.
And that sign was like all the colours of the rainbow. It was blimmin' awful, you know. And there's this beautiful black and white building and this blimmin' awful computer arm. So I was really, really pleased when that finally went. And they've got this quite tasteful now frontage for tap and can.
That was an old Morris's Cafe.
Morris's Cafe. Many years ago. Yeah.
It's trying to find how you can bring the modern age. We were just talking about this at the beginning. How you can bring the modern age into a town with so much tradition, because I mean, we've got to keep moving forward. You know, we do have to stick with the times, don't we? But it's a way of doing it tastefully in a place like Shrewsbury. Yes, let's be sexy and modern and colourful, but let's try and, like you said with the Woolworths thing, let's try and make it match with the surroundings in a way that it's not just like this like big bright red light in the middle of. That's probably the worst colour to say. Big bright light in the middle of what is history and culture, you know.
Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, the closing the streets at the weekend has been a big thing.
Oh, I like that. I do like that.
That has brought people in from the suburbs more into the centre of the town, because most people, if you do your weekly shopping, you go to the retail parks, don't you? But people come into the town and spread around the town. And the atmosphere when the streets are closed is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. But traffic is a problem. And we are increasing. And the more houses you build, the more cars you will get. You mean, every house, you walk around the estate, nearly every house has got 2 cars, some have got 3, and a works van, and it just goes on. And they've got to go somewhere, and the only way you can channel it around is round town walls, the medieval part of the town, and you get log jams. So traffic is important, which links to the riverside development.
I was going to say the riverside development. If you look at the artist's impressions for it, like 20, 30 years on, no road, you know, which is lovely and idyllic, but you do think, well, hang on, where are all those cars going to go? And I think we're a long, long way away yet from that point where, yes, we're encouraging people not to use the car if at all possible, use public transport, but that public transport needs to be excellent in order for people to use it. And it isn't excellent.
No.
And it's going in the wrong direction. And people should walk more and people should cycle more, but a lot of people aren't able to do those things. So, you know, all this needs to be thought through.
Yeah, cycle up Wild Cop, people.
I mean, just touching on buses, I mean, they are changing. When I moved into my present house, there was a bus every half hour, it then became every hour. Now it's hit and miss, and we're told in September we're going to lose it. And in the street where I live, along with myself, are elderly people, and sometimes we don't need to walk into town, and that's the problem.
I mean, I've travelled all over Europe. You know, I've been to many places, and one thing that gets me about in the middle of Europe is how great the transport is there. The public transport is fantastic. It runs like clockwork, and when you get on there, it's clean. And I'm not saying this isn't a Brexit thing or anything like that, but what I'm saying is they try harder in many countries with public transport. And when I was in Greece actually, reading stories about how they're taking buses away in Shrewsbury, and I was like, what? It is disgraceful. Like, they definitely need to try harder, because it is better for the environment at the end of the day. You know, a little bit better for the environment. And it'll cut down on the traffic as well. So,
but I've lived in Germany for 6 years, and on and off. And to be honest with you, it's incredible, because you would go to a town, and you would park, and then you would have one of these little trains which would take you into the town, and that's how they get round it. And the traffic is routed round. And there's some towns in Germany now, you're not allowed to have a garage. Your garage is on the outskirts of the town.
Yeah.
They're that's strict on things like that.
In Colombia, they have something called Pico plaque, and it's so they alternate license plate numbers. So on one day, only people with odd numbered license plate numbers can drive, and the even ones have to stay at home, and then they switch it around to the even numbers the next day, so it cuts down traffic. But what we've got people doing is buying 2 cars, one with an odd number, one with an even number. It's something that's really interested me. I thought it was really funny. So that's one thing I guess is we need to work on. And tourism. I'm working at the moment hard on sort of making content that is available for people to come in and use. I mean, Stan, you helped me do a great tour of the library, which is yet to be edited and put together and given away as a package. We've done 6 or 7 of them. I think we've got 2 more to do of tours. I know that we're working on building like stories about local myth lore, where people can go and do like a trail and find out stories about what's going on. A bit like what Sarah Hopper's doing. But I mentioned to Nigel Baker, who's a great guy, archaeologist guy, and he's fantastic. And we did a couple of tours as well. And I was saying, like, I would love to take all these things that we're doing, the audio tours, all these bits, but have a hub. Have a place where people can go, start these trails, and buy souvenirs and get in touch with local Shrewsbury history. I feel like something like that needs to be part of Shrewsbury.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on this one. In the early 2000s, we had a visitor information centre run by Shrewsbury Natural Council, which was voted the best in the Midlands. Absolutely superb. They had everything at their fingertips. We now have a building where you walk in and there's a shop selling goods for the museum, which I can understand, and tucked in the far corner is a little bit about Shrewsbury, and the atmosphere is not there. The staff are continually changing. We haven't got that high profile visitor information centre which a town like Shrewsbury does need.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I think it's going the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, like it has to be said. It has to be said, I guess. There's so much positivity that goes on in town. Let's keep it positive. Let's try and move forward with that.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the places outside of Shrewsbury I like to take people, when we were talking about before, bringing people outside of town, is Ironbridge. Because obviously Ironbridge and Ironbridge Cultural Museum, you can go and change your money to Victorian money and people walking around in character and stuff. That kind of thing's amazing. And I know not everybody comes to Shrewsbury for history, but you're saying there's people from Australia, people come from abroad, from outside, for that. So let's embrace it, That's what I'm saying.
Can I just add one as well?
Yeah.
I had a director of the Carnac Museum in Luxor on a tour. He was visiting a friend and they asked me to do a tour for him. And I took him round Shrewsbury and I did all the regular places. And we finished up, stood in front of Clive, and he said, "That was incredible." I said, "Thank you very much, But no, he said, what I mean is, he said, I've got a temple which is 3,000-4,000 years old, full stop. He said, I've just walked around your town and I've seen a building from every century, from the 10th century to the present day. He said, where can you see that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, when you put it like that.
Yeah.
And we're lucky. I mean, I've just come back from Kos, right? And I've just mentioned it half a dozen times during this podcast. But we went on a tour it was made to look like a train. Imagine that if you're from Telford or you've been around Telford, there used to be like a land train that used to go around Town Park, right? Yeah. It's a bit like that. And it's like, I kept saying, hello and welcome to Greece. There's a shop and another shop and a shop and a shop and another shop. And it is literally like, it's such a shame that they just mowed down so much of the history in main Kos cities. Yeah. And then they have ruins that are cordoned off. They put loads of trees along so you can't see. So you have to pay your admittance to go, and it was such a shame that there's all these modern buildings and there's only a little bit of history saved. And this is ancient Greece we're talking about. It's just nuts, absolutely nuts. So we're lucky that we live in a town where history is so well preserved, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was lucky enough to get married in Shrewsbury Castle, and you tell your friends that aren't from Shrewsbury, like, oh, you got married in a castle. Well, I'm not that important at all, but it's just a brilliant option.
Yeah.
But then the evening do at the Lion, which was just spectacular. Great building.
Yeah, swish.
Yeah,
swish. Right. Well, I mean, we're coming up on 45 minutes. I feel like we've done a good service to Shrewsbury today. We've talked about the things that we love and things that we'd like to see a bit more of. Is there anything anybody would like to add before we sort of start closing up here? Is there anything that we've missed that you guys would like to add?
Well, I think with Stan just touching on Ironbridge, it's a great place. Shropshire, centre of the county, but we've got so much else where people can base themselves here and go and visit, like Bliss Hill, Ludlow. It's just a great place to be.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'd also pick up on something that Stan said earlier about his walks and talks, that people from other suburbs will go to other suburbs that they've never been to before and have a wander around and think, oh goodness, this is lovely. And I would encourage that, whether Stan's involved or not. I would encourage people to explore other parts of the town.
Yeah. Be a tourist in your own town, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
It's very nice to do sometimes, just go and visit your local museum, go do a tour with Stan. If you've never done a tour with Stan, tell people how they can get on a tour with you, please.
No, I'm having to curtail my tours because of my health, to be honest with you.
Yeah?
My feet are giving up. And
Oh, bless you.
but there we are. I hope I've introduced people to a lot of the places.
Oh,
But just to finish, you mentioned the museum. In that building on the 13th of June 1959, I spied a lady across the straw. And I married that lady.
Oh.
And that is why I live in Shrewsbury. Two things. I got a wonderful wife, but I got a wonderful place to live.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a great way to end it. Thank you so much. Phil, would you like to tell people about the book, where people can find it?
Thank you, Alex. Yes, you can find it in Waterstones. You can find it in our wonderful independent bookshops, Penguin Books in Fish Street and the Raven Bookshop on the balcony in the Market Hall. And it's in the shop for ducks now, as of this morning, in the shopping centre. And it's in Abbey Foregate Post Office, and it's in lots of other places too.
It's a great looking book too. And obviously you work with property, Andy, but you got the Facebook group as well, which might offer advice for people, homeowners.
Yeah, absolutely. The Shrewsbury property page, what we're trying to do is make something that's a little bit more interesting and have varied content, rather than just property for sale, we sold this one. Just a little bit more about the town and what people can expect.
Amazing. And guys, I imagine most of you that are listening to this are part of For the Love of Shrewsbury Facebook page.
Absolutely. That's how I recognised Stan from outside. He thought it was because he saw somebody take a photo of the building and just went over and told them all about it, and you could see they were captivated. It's just like, wow.
So it's a passion for Stan. It's an absolute passion for Stan. And if you can get on tours, obviously not if Stan is slowing down a little bit, which is understandable, Stan, you've done so much for this town. But if you can find a way, they do great tours from the museum, don't they? They have great tours.
They do. And also there's a lady called I think it's Mary Rhodes. She writes leaflets and you can buy them and it's different walks. So you can get one on Shotson Passage, one on Victorian Shrewsbury, one on Georgian Shrewsbury. So you can self-tour. And that's a very good idea because you find people wandering around the backs of buildings and what have you.
Yeah.
So there's stuff there.
And we're putting together some audio tours as well for you guys. So we'll find out more about that. It's something I'm working with Original Shrewsbury, but it's a project I've been working with for a while. We had a few issues at the beginning of the year with floods and pandemics and stuff, but we'll get that to you very, very soon. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a really nice. Thank you to the Old Market Hall as well for letting us come here today to do this. The ambience you've heard behind us has been really nice, actually. And if you want to come and see a really nice little cinema, this is a really nice space to come and watch a movie. Thank you so much for joining me, guys.
And thank you, Alex, for what you do for Shrewsbury.
Yeah, I've been sunning it up in Greece for a week. I haven't done nothing, but thank you so much, Stan.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. And we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.